And greetings. Happy, what is it? Tuesday. That's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand on BlazeTV radio and podcast. I'm Steve Deace, alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. We have a lot going on here on the program today. We have fake news or not coming up later in the show as we look at the launch of the inevitable, much anticipated Tucker Carlson's new digital platform yesterday and what impact we think that may or may not have on both the country and the marketplace. We'll get into that for fake news or not coming up a little bit later on. For Pop Culture Tuesday, next hour, we're going to talk about an effort. This is something that has really been on my heart more and more as this year has gone on, especially after seeing with my own eyes the difficulty of getting a movie with a biblical worldview made at all, and then into theaters, into the mainstream system that, frankly, the devil just flat out controls and doesn't want to let go of. There's a new effort afoot to recruit talented people to infiltrate popular culture. We'll talk about that coming up next hour of the show as well. You know, you get to the end of the year and you start getting a little retrospective on the year that was. My wife's a voracious reader, and she did not. There wasn't a book she read this year, and she read a lot. There wasn't a book she read this year that she raved more about than this book called Cruel Logic. And we're going to talk to the author, Brian Godawa, at the bottom of the hour here and give him a little bit of pub. It comes highly recommended by my significant other, so figured maybe some of you in the audience might be interested in this book as well. You also might be interested in our friends over at First Cup Coffee. If you are looking for a coffee company that has your value system but also makes a hella cup of coffee, according to Aaron and several of you, you want to check out First Cup Coffee Company. There is a flavor for every freedom-loving American. Shipped within days of being roasted, and they placed the roast date right there on each bag. You can go to firstcup.com. Use the promo code DEACE to save an additional 10% off your order when you do. Promo code DEACE to save 10% off your order. And if you subscribe so that you want the coffee to come to your home every month, you'll get an additional 10% off for the life of your subscription as well at firstcup.com. That's firstcup.com, and use the promo code DEACE. And with that, he's almost back to 100%. Certainly 100% better than he was at this time yesterday. So we present to you Aaron with today's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Who Could Have Seen That Coming? Yesterday, it was revealed special counsel Jack Smith requested that the Supreme Court deliberate and decide quickly whether former President Donald Trump can be prosecuted on charges he plotted to overturn the 2020 election results. Trump's legal team has been trying to maneuver the J6 case until after next year's presidential election. Bypassing the D.C. Federal Appeals Court and going straight to SCOTUS would likely take that strategy off the table. Trump's trial in the J6 case is slated to begin as it currently stands in early March. Harvard University's board has issued a statement saying they unanimously stand in support of President Claudine Gay. Dr. Gay last week was one of those 3 university presidents who testified in front of Congress and obfuscated and dodged the question about whether calling for the genocide of Jews goes against student codes of conduct. Then, after that testimony, it was revealed by Chris Rufo and a pair of investigative journalists that Dr. Gay of Harvard engaged in plagiarism in her doctoral thesis, prompting the aforementioned statement of support from Harvard's board. You've probably already heard the University of Pennsylvania's president, Liz McGill, resigned over her testimony in front of Congress last week. It's being reported, though no official announcement yet, that New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu will be endorsing Nikki Haley ahead of the New Hampshire primary next month. Sununu is expected to make that announcement at an event tonight. Donald Trump, during a speech at the New York Young Republicans Club, had a story to tell. He says the most brave thing he did in his life was debating Hillary Clinton in the aftermath of his grab-him-by-the-you-know-what comments surfaced.
I went onto that stage just a few days later, and a general who's a fantastic general actually said to me, "Sir, I've been on the battlefield. Men have gone down on my left and on my right. I stood on hills where soldiers were killed. But I believe the bravest thing I've ever seen was the night you went onto that stage with Hillary Clinton after what happened. And then that woman asked you the first question about it. And I said, locker room talk. It's locker room talk. What the hell? What are you talking? Locker room talk."
Meanwhile, in Iowa, here's Ron DeSantis.
Faith in God is really the foundation of how I live my life, but also how I conduct myself in an elected office. When you're doing what's right, when you have your compass set to true north, every single day in this process, media, opposition, everything, it's all designed to push you off course. It's all designed to divert you from being able to achieve what you're looking to achieve. And so having that foundation of faith in God is really what keeps you centered and what allows you to keep that compass set to true north.
Bud Light is conservative again. Tucker Carlson interviewed UFC Grand Poobah Dana White and asked him about the UFC's partnership with the embattled beer brand, who partnered with a mentally ill dude to market the beverage.
Let me tell you what, if you consider yourself a patriot, right, you're a patriot, you should be drinking gallons of Bud Light. Believe me when I tell you.
Wait. I should be boycotting Bud Light.
Gallons of Bud Light. You should have Bud Light drums stacked up in your garage and drinking it right out of the keg. They are way more aligned with you than most of these other beer companies are. That I guarantee you. Take it from somebody who's in the know, who does business with beer companies. You are way more aligned with Bud Light than you are with any other beer company.
I mean, they didn't come into partnership with you by accident.
No.
Obviously.
We had multiple bidders on the table.
Did they seek you out?
We had multiple bidders on the table. They were one of them. And as history has shown me with relationships that I've had with other beer companies, I, who lean more this way, I, who consider myself a patriot, I don't go crazy over the whole patriot thing, but I consider myself a proud American. I'm happy to be an American. I love this country. And you are way more aligned with Anheuser-Busch than you are with other beer companies.
Speaking of Tucker Carlson, he announced a new media venture in the last few days. It's called the Tucker Carlson Network. Newly elected Argentinian President Javier Milei has signed an executive order cutting the number of Argentine government ministries from 18 to 9, making good on a promise for now to slash that federal government's bureaucracy. CDC Director Mandy Cohen, in the year of our Lord 2023, is once again asking the population to mask up.
Get your updated COVID and flu vaccines and your RSV vaccine if you're over 60. It's not too late to get vaccinated if you haven't already. And use additional layers of protection, like avoiding people who are sick, washing your hands, improving ventilation, and wearing a mask.
A final batch of Pfizer COVID jab safety documents has been released, and according to a report from the Epoch Times, those documents prove the FDA knew its safety program to monitor the COVID jab's safety was, quote, not sufficient to assess the serious risks of myocarditis and pericarditis. The documents also show the FDA knew at the time of its approval its program to monitor the COVID jab safety was, quote, not sufficient to identify the outcomes due to lack of sufficient power to assess the magnitude of risk in patients 20 to 30 years of age. And finally, despite nearly double the number of reported cardiac events in vaccine recipients versus the placebo recipients, the FDA concluded the deaths were, quote, unlikely to be related to vaccination. We're doing fine here. And finally, Calvinist Santa. Here's the Babylon Bee.
Ho, ho, ho! Have you been a good boy this year?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I think so.
Incorrect! You are totally depraved, completely unable to please God in your sinful flesh. Ho, 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 ho!
Am I still getting any toys?
You'll get exactly what you deserve. Coal! And if you don't repent, an even more flammable fate. Ho, 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 ho.
You can watch that entire hilarious satire on all the Babylon Bee's social channels, and that's what happened while we were away.
Nailed it. That's still one of my all-time favorite Babylon Bee headlines. Calvinist dog proclaims, no one is a good boy. Oh, gosh. Aaron's montage is brought to you by our friends over at Taiga Coolers, who think so much about one of our other partners that our friends at Taiga Coolers want us to talk about them instead. Now, don't get us wrong. Okay, Taiga Coolers is a great company. American-made coolers with a lifetime warranty. Get them custom-made as a Christmas gift for your loved ones if you want. When you go to taigacoolers.com, T-A-I-G-A, taigacoolers.com, and use the promo code Steve for a 10% discount there. But they wanted to yield the balance of their time for their final appearance on our show this year to go to our friends over at Preborn because of the outstanding ministry that they are. If you want to donate to the pro-life ministry, Preborn, which has about an 80% track record of saving babies once they show that mother their ultrasound. But then they understand that that mom is still in need of help, and they offer her pre- and postnatal care. All of this is free of charge, provided they have tax-deductible donations and funding from people like us. And if you'd like to make one of those today, go to preborn.com/Steve. You know, it's just $28. $28 is, even with Bidenflation, that's all it costs for one of those ultrasounds that's got 80% odds of saving a life. At preborn.com/Steve, or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby on your mobile phone, or just go to preborn.com/Steve. All right, to Aaron's montage we go. And there's three things I want to touch on here in this montage. We're going to talk more about the revelations out of the final Pfizer docu-dump. That's going to come tomorrow on the show when Daniel Horowitz joins us for his weekly stint. Him and I will get into further details on that tomorrow. So for now, I've got a post up on Twitter already this morning, having read through some of what is there with the time I had this morning, and some of the things that stood out to me. Just go to my Twitter account at Steve Deace Show, or X, Twitter or X at Steve Deace Show. But Daniel and I will get into this in more detail tomorrow when he joins us on the show. I've said this before. Let me just reset this once again when it comes to the appropriately named Dr. Gay. As the demonic trolls just roll in. Okay, I mean, the first openly gay presidential candidate's name is Buttigieg. Buttigieg. A male homosexual running for president whose name starts with butt. Okay. Like they're just drunk in hell. At this point, they're like fourth grade boys. Okay,
these are the jokes.
Yes, okay. Buttigieg. All right, we had our first openly bisexual U.S. senator. Her name was Sinema. Really? Sinema? Okay, what's next? All right. Senator I.P. Freely. Senator Buster Cherry. What's next here? Okay, I mean, honestly. I mean, they're just mocking us at this point. Okay, Sinema, right? Now we have Dr. Gay. Dr. Gay. Okay, cool. All right, that's great. Okay, all stuff I still kind of find funny, but because, guys never leave the sixth grade, but I really would have found it funny when I was actually in the sixth grade. Anyway, if she had told the U.S. Congress a couple of weeks ago that it, quote, depended on the context, unquote, when asked what she would do about students chanting death to homosexuals on campus, would she have already been fired, do you think, or forced to resign? Or maybe even just driven literally out of the country by an angry mob.
I was going to say fired and worse. I mean, in a hole somewhere in Ukraine.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. She'd be conscripted by Zelensky. Yes. Okay. So I just wanted to reset that in light of last night's news that Aaron highlighted. Let me say this. Follow me here for just a second. Okay. So Friday, out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere, the feds drop 17 years of indictments on Hunter Biden. And I believe I said on this show last Friday when this news broke, right as we were on the air, I believe is when it broke, or right before we came on the air. I referred to this, in one of the ways I referred to this was Operation Fig Leaf. That the point of this is the fig leaf so that your normie suburban neighbor or family member or ex-urban neighbor or family member will remain in the deep sleep that they are in. Will not be awakened to backlash vote because I said this last Friday, did I not? When they arrest and convict and incarcerate Donald Trump next year, they're going to turn to your normie buddy. While you're losing it, I mean, you're emptying your bowels, all right? You're emptying your bowels. You're losing your poo, okay? And your normie buddy across the fence, your privacy fence there in your suburb or exurb, he's going to come back with, well, gee, didn't they go after Hunter Biden too? That's going to happen, correct? Did we not just have this conversation Friday?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, I will tell you, I know I'm pretty good at this, but I did not anticipate that this was going to be fulfilled by Monday. This is moving even faster than I anticipated, and I have been warning this entire calendar year this was coming. Over the weekend, some strategically placed op-eds. We even had a U.S. Senator go on one of the Sunday shows, Senator Murphy from Connecticut. Justifiable indictment of Hunter Biden. This is questionable behavior. Okay. I mean, this isn't even pro wrestling now. We're doing community theater. That's what we're doing here. The overacting is rich. All right. I mean,
and he's scratching out the script.
I know.
Live while he's talking. Like, I know yesterday I said that it's just a father who loves his son.
Yes.
But now.
Correct. We're 5 minutes away from no way, Corky. You're not going to put up with these people. Because you're all just bastard people. That's what you are. You're just bastard people. And I'm going to go home. And I'm going to bite my pillow. That's what I'm going to do. We are 5 minutes from waiting for Guffman level of community theater performances here. Pro wrestling is like, dude, we're a lot better at this than these guys. Stop comparing them to us. There's a lot more flair in The Undertaker coming out of the coffin than Senator Murphy. Pardon me. Yes, this is now a justifiable endorsement. These are troubling revelations. And then Joe Biden actually reads from the teleprompter, did I do this right? All right. Pro wrestling's way better than this. Way better performances. Monday morning, we're sitting here in the middle of the show. What happens? Well, lo and behold, Jack Smith decides, I'm going to just bypass the D.C. Court of Appeals. Remember, on Friday, we talked about the makeup of the D.C. Court of Appeals, how that was likely going to go against Trump given the makeup, right? 7 Democrats, 4 Republicans, 3 appointed by Trump, but the 4th appointed by George Herbert Walker Bush. So that's basically an L. Remember, we had this conversation just Friday, right? Pretty much first thing Monday morning, Jack Smith stuns the media. No one saw it coming. And lo and behold, goes to the Supreme Court with this irregular motion to ask for an emergency cert, an emergency question answered. Is Donald Trump immune from prosecution as a private citizen, even if he broke laws while he was president? And
hello, Dave.
Then the media reports, it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court will do. Will they even
John Roberts?
Will they even hear this? Will they even take this? It was about this time yesterday that you were on here making the connection of, hey, you just asked me out of the blue. Yeah. Steve, they ever find the Supreme Court leaker during Dobbs? Nope. And go back to last year, my theory has always been John Roberts was the leaker. That's why nothing has happened. Because Roberts, I think, thought that the other justices were going to go too far in overturning Roe. He was willing to uphold the 15-week law because, by the way, prior to Dobbs, we were only like one of 6 countries in the world that allowed you to have an abortion after 15 weeks. When Texas and Mississippi passed those 2 laws and foreign leaders like Macron were condemning them, the president of France apparently doesn't even know you can't go to his country and get an abortion after 15 weeks.
In France.
And the other countries on the list with this are like China and North Korea kind of places, all right? The only places in the world where you can get an abortion after 15 weeks. The whole world. So Roberts was willing to uphold those laws. The other justices wanted to use this as an impetus to just overturn Roe. He didn't want that. Remember, normally you'll get multiple opinions on a minority or a dissent. It is not often that the Chief Justice, who gets the first right of refusal to write a majority opinion, chooses to actually write his own dissenting from the other majority views. He thought they went too far. I believe he's the leaker. And that's why we haven't busted anybody for this. It's the first leak in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's one of the most important decisions in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, lo and behold, as we continue down this series of unfortunate, and I promise you, totally random, non-contrived, non-connected, non-sequenced events. I promise you. Gosh. Huh. In just a matter of a few hours, the Supreme Court decides, by golly, we will take this one up. I'm sure they just flipped the Harvey Two-Face coin. Just, again, a random act. They had no idea what they were going to do. My favorite part is how when the order from the court that said they would take it. And then, by the way, Trump and his attorneys who are trying to push this all off until after the next election, they were told they have barely a week to respond. All right. Yesterday was December 11th. They've got to have their response in, man, Monday, the morning of December the 20th. Barely a week. 9 days. Why the rush? I'm sure they just want to settle such a probing question of constitutional inquisitiveness before we all break for the winter solstice recognition. I am sure that's what it is.
They learned their lesson from the legislature. Here's a 10,000-page omnibus. Sign it tomorrow.
Then, when the court releases their order, no judge is mentioned. Who approved this? Huh. Weird. So, I'll tell you who approved it. Take a guess. Come on. Come on. You got a 1 in 9 shot. Take a guess.
The ghost of Scalia?
Who approved this?
No.
No. Not even the ghost of Sandra Day O'Connor, who just passed. No. Each judge is given jurisdiction over what comes out of one of the federal district courts. There are a total, I believe, of 11 district courts, one all-encompassing federal district, and then the D.C. court, which is where January 6th cases are being tried by Jack Smith, is its own district court. Can you guess which Supreme Court justice oversees the D.C. district? Steve, I can name that tune in 666 beats. Yes, you can. By golly, again, another rando coincidence. It's Chief Justice John Roberts oversees that court. Huh. I'm sure when Jack Smith's motion ended up in the lap of John Roberts on Monday morning, he was like, my word. I mean, I'm as shocked as Kate Upton is when someone tells her she's pretty. I am just, knock me, like Laurel and Hardy. Blow me down with a Russian olive.
It's Wuhan luck or no luck at all,
That's
Steve.
right. This is every bit as random as a bat that nests 900 kilometers from a place that has not one, not two, but 3 bioweapons labs in a densely populated area. Just so happened to fly into a wet market in that place, gnaw on a coronavirus-infested animal, which then allowed that animal to be consumed by a human. And lo and behold, a novel virus is born.
That's airtight logic, Steve.
If we didn't have Wuhan for luck, we'd have no luck at all. And now suddenly we're going to have this adjudicated right now. You know, when I was a kid, I knew a kid who was a bully. And one day, he finally got stopped by the teachers, and they asked him, hey, why do you keep punching the other kids? Straight up, this is what he said. I don't punch the kids. They just keep running into my fist. He straight up told the teachers this. This was like the 4th or 5th grade. Democrats just stand out here with clenched fists. And we just run face first into them. I mean, like flush hits too. Just, what is this?
Just as the founders intended, Steve.
This is complete and total horse bleep BS. This is Banana Republic. This is a flat-out coup.
Yep.
Again, what is this, coup 3 or 4? I'm losing track. Here's the thing, though.
It's coup electric boogaloo, Steve.
This goes right to what I was talking about yesterday before this all went down. The average Trump operative and the average Trump voter believes this isn't going down, even though it's going down actually right the bleep now. It's going down now. This is an attempt for Jack Smith to make damn sure he gets to put Trump on trial next year before the election and not have it delayed by however long it takes for the various clerks at the various district courts to have their say, to write their opinions. We're going to go right there now. And if you think Jack Smith doesn't already know the answer, then you probably are still holding on to the belief that a Chinese face diaper stops 100% of airborne contagions. Take it off. They're going to do this in broad daylight because they do everything in broad daylight. At some point, we must have a plan other than I'm going to tweet about it for money. We must have a plan to stop this. Or we could do this instead. We should just pimp Bud Light. I'm saying this right now. I'm out. I'm not joining any more boycotts. I'm not joining any more causes. I don't believe in any of them. This is maybe the only successful boycott we've ever done. And now you're just not patriotic, according to the head of a largely obscure sports league. You just aren't patriotic because I cut a business deal with them. I mean, I'm just out. Don't call me and say we got to boycott the NFL because you're all silent about this because since it's okay that UFC sold out to Bud Light because they like Trump. I'm just out. I'm out. Not joining. I'm not a joiner anyway by nature. Kind of not how I roll anyway. I've stayed in Iowa. I stay out of D.C. I stay out of all the other places as much as I can. Just going to do my own thing. You want to listen? Cool. You want to read? Cool. You want to watch? Great. If you don't, that's cool too. But I'm not joining with any of this. I'm just not. Not interested. I'm going to like what I like. You like what you like. And let's just all be honest now and consenting adults. There's no higher standard here other than what makes everybody money. Let's just be honest about that. Cool. All right? We're all whores. Cool. Okay. You whore your way. I'll whore. I'll keep whoring. I'll keep the whoring in mine. Okay? We're going to do that. Thanks. I'm out. Don't call me. Not calling you. Don't join with me. Not asking you to join. Don't ask me to join with you. Preemptive no to like everything. I'm totally out. This was my last straw. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, that was simultaneously as serious and as fun a time as we've had on this show, which we're going to need going forward. We're going to be talking about nothing but serious things, and we got to make it fun or we're going to go insane. And what Steve just laid out for you was deadly serious. And if we do not wrap our brain around it soon, and I'm not even sure. When I say that, I don't even know if I believe my own words anymore. I will say one thing, though, Steve. The only thing I disagreed with is at the very end, a largely obscure sports league. UFC is huge. It is absolutely huge. And so I think I've as much grief as I've given to football, this is so huge, it definitely falls under soap operas for men. And nothing will rescue wokeness from its consequences faster than soap operas for men. Once again, swooping in to make sure that one of its greatest failures is resurrected just because too much money. It's just too much money to be had. So, great job, everyone.
Yeah, we're doing great here. It's not obscure, the UFC. That's why Bud Light tried to and has successfully hitched its caboose to UFC. UFC has a brand, which is very, well, whatever the definition of masculine is now, that's kind of what that's what they're trying to do. So that's why Bud Light did this deal with UFC. And for Dana White, you heard him there hedging his words. You know, I consider myself a patriot. I don't get too far into that stuff. But what he's telling you is, I'm a patriot so long as it's monetizable.
Yep.
And they cut me a really big freaking check. So you should drink gallons of Bud Light. And Tucker Carlson's there like, okay. What a freaking joke.
Yeah, I'm just out. Not in at all. Just going to do my thing. And if enough people want to consume it, I'll get to keep doing this for a living. And if they don't, I'm cool with that too.
pericarditis and his mRNAs have all your favorite holiday songs in one non-random controlled study.
It's beginning to look a lot like a Vax Pass to get into anywhere you go.
From inspiring hymns like
Oh, holy spike, the protein bloodstream traveling because they lied and it don't stay in your arm. Oh, little town of Wuhan, we can't believe you lied. You're run by creeps who should be put to sleep. Those bats, they don't live nearby.
Two traditional Christmas classics such as
The 12th decade of lockdowns my true lords gave to me. Absolutely freaking nothing. I've been home since Christmas. You can Zoom with me. Said your kidneys to the people far and near. Do you fear remdesivir?
Then there's those funny novelty songs to lighten the mood.
Grandma got run over by a chromo. He left her to die in an infected nursing home. I really can't stay. Baby, it's COVID stand. I really must go. Can't, baby, it's COVID stand. I saw mommy masking Santa Claus because the CDC said so last night. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell palsy. If you dare get that booster, then you sure are ballsy.
And of course, we remember the reason for the season.
Fauci, did you know that your virus would someday wreck the world? Fauci, did you know that your science doesn't know what's a boy or a girl? It came upon Anthony Fauci, a sulfuric presence of old, from demons deep within the earth, who knew that his soul was sold.
But that's not all. This collection has so much more to offer, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Redfield, All I Want for Christmas Is My Fifth Vaccine, Deck Rochelle with Facts and Data, Whitmer Wonderland, Little Jabber Boy, Have Yourself a Little Waning Efficacy, Happy Christmas, This Is Never Over, and more. All this can be yours for a high price we can't name yet because inflation, but don't let that stop you from this once-in-a-lifetime collection. Call now at 1-900-666-VAX to order. Only available while supply chains last. Must be double masked when you call. Again, that's 1-900-666-VAXX.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Eden Pure. If you've got those odors in your home you just cannot possibly get rid of, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier, notice I didn't say freshener, air purifier is what you are looking for. So many rave reviews from within our audience since they came on board a couple of years ago. Thousands of 5-star reviews online. This gets rid of the components that are causing those strong odors in your home, whether it's cooking smells or pet smells, teenage boy smells, cigarette smells, even that mildew smell you can't get rid of. No match for the Thunderstorm Air Purifier from Eden Pure, and it's filterless, so you're never changing out filters either out of your own pocket or time. If you want to take advantage of their 3-pack for whole home protection, get it now for under $200 plus free shipping when you go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code Steve. Get this deal with the discount code Steve at EdenPureDeals.com. Well, I mentioned a little while ago, you get to the end of the year, You sometimes get a little retrospective. Next week we'll close out Thursday and Friday with our annual end of the year programs. The end of the year Dace Group is a week from Thursday. Then the final year in review show is a week from Friday. My wife is a voracious reader, man. She reads a ton, but she didn't read anything this year that she wanted to talk about more than this book. It is called Cruel Logic, a postmodern killer, the philosopher killer, and it's described as a postmodern killer for a postmodern world. She raved about this book and said, you've got to get the author on. So I did, because I always do what I'm told. Brian Godawa is here. Good to see you, Brian. Merry Christmas, brother. How are you?
Good, and thanks for having me on, Steve. Merry Christmas indeed.
All right, tell us a little bit about you, man. Who are you?
Well, my background's kind of as a Hollywood screenwriter. I actually wrote the movie To End All Wars years ago. It was award-winning, and my goal was as a Christian to be in Hollywood and to, write movies like Braveheart or what have you that have a Christian worldview beneath them. And so I've been writing movies all these years, but about 10 years ago, I started writing novels. And I actually started out as a novelist doing Bible novels as supernatural epics. And that launched into the stratosphere and best-selling on Bible fiction lists on Amazon. And I've been doing those for the last 10 years. But more recently, I finally wrote this Cruel Logic, and it had actually began as a screenplay that I was trying to make as a movie. Was never able to get it made as a movie. That's not unusual. So I finally wrote it as a novel. But what was interesting was the premise of the story is that there's a philosopher serial killer on campus. And what he does is, and it's a woke campus, and what he does is he captures university professors and he debates with them. And the topic of the debate is his moral right to kill them. So he'll have anyone from an evolutionary biologist to a queer theorist. He captures them and he basically asks them, look.
So this is man bites dog, E.T. phone home kind of stuff, basically.
Yeah,
I got you.
Exactly.
All right, keep going. All right.
And he asks them, hey, look, if what you say is true about reality, then give me one valid reason why I should not kill you and I'll let you go. And that's sort of the hook of the whole story.
I'd ask you where you came up with this idea, except the answer is obvious other than everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But incidentally, though, this was originally written quite a while ago. And in more recent years, with all the woke explosion, I've actually added a whole context and environment to the story that just expands it tremendously. So it takes place on a woke campus, and you've got a young Christian student, freshman there for the first year, and he gets caught up in the social justice movement because his evangelical faith is quite weak, and as he gets led into that, we see everything from the trans ideology to Antifa and student uprisings, and so it's a quite dramatic environment. However, everything that occurs in the novel is actually rooted in actual events that have occurred in the last 5 or 10 years on campuses, whether it's the student protests, violent protests, or the professors being shut up by students in their classes. I have all these things going on in the novel, so that if you read it, you'll get a good feel for the worst of the worst of in modern American universities.
I was going to ask you about that because with my own experience writing a nefarious plot, I wanted to avoid writing a polemic. I wanted to avoid having the demon who writes the book be a caricature of me and an anti-hero where I'm just using a flawed vessel for my own laments. But I wanted to depict actual evil, which required me to get out of my own worldview and see evil for, and behave as if evil really, as it really does. And that was what I was going to ask you, is the temptation to do that as a Christian yourself. How do you know you're not just writing a polemic, but this is an act, this is real. This is something that when it's over, people can say, wow, I could see this really going down.
Yeah, well, I have to say that in a way, it is an incarnation of the moral argument for the existence of God, and I think it's going to connect with people because of this. You can sit here and we can have our abstract arguments and philosophical arguments, which I love philosophy. I've always studied apologetics and philosophy. And there's a place for that. But in this story, you get to sort of see the incarnation of the argument, which is a more personable human connection. But because of my Hollywood screenwriting, I've been trained to really approach storytelling without judgments of the character. What that means is I have the hero and I have the villain, and there's a definite perspective and viewpoint in the story. But when you write your villains, a good villain, you're going to actually enter into that understanding and try to make it as realistic as possible. Try to show them at the best that you possibly can, because precisely the problem with a lot of the Hollywood polemic movies, the political movies, whether it's the Comey Rule, or and the one that shot down Sarah Palin and all that. Mm-hmm. When they do their political movies, they're just propaganda. But to do a good story, to tell a good story, you want to actually have both sides with this at the strongest viewpoint that you can. So my goal in writing it was to not attack all the woke people and show them as bad as possible. That's the worst Christian cliche stuff. But actually to show them at their best, and to also show that the Christians in the story are not perfect as well. They're sinners, and they've got problems as well. In fact, there's some pretty harsh surprises in there, for sure. But one of the things, though, that I have to warn Christian readers is that in part of showing the evil, particularly the story takes place in a college, and the theme is ideas have consequences. And so we hear all these themes and ideas in the campus, but what do they really result in? Well, in order to depict evil accurately, or shall we say, in order to depict a powerful redemption, you have to depict evil accurately. So I do have some F-bombs, some bad language in there, because that is how the students really speak. When they protest, they don't say, gosh darn Western civilization. They say F Western civilization. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't depict that evil accurately, it's not going to capture the violent hatred that is driving them. And that's the same violent hatred that leads them to use language against their enemies, like, we are domestic terrorists and we are Nazis and such, because it's going to lead to violence. And that's sort of one of the underlying themes as well of the story.
Final thing, Brian, I want to ask you. I don't believe there's any resolution here outside of the restoration of a biblical worldview in our culture. I don't believe we can vote populi our way out of this. I don't believe that we can conservative intellectual our way out of this. That Marxism is just a stand-in manifestation for a satanic demonic. It's a satanic demonic ideological manifestation of a satanic demonic worldview. And I just think a lot of the right still doesn't understand or believe this, because much of the right is also godless. So how do you resolve this as a writer?
Well, I without giving away the twist, I assure you that there is Christian redemption in the story. But I actually agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I follow you on X, because I love your approach in that way, and I have the same sort of heart. And so one of my main characters is a psychology professor who is helping the cop track down the serial killer. And the professor, of course, knows the killer in some way. And I kind of based him on Jordan Peterson, Douglas Murray, and some of these other people who I have great respect for. But it's a fascinating sort of, I don't know what you call it, a movement or something, where we have a lot of people who are pro-Western civilization. They get it. They also support the fact that Christianity is the basis of it, but they're not Christians themselves. And I find that fascinating, and I wanted to explore that. So I have a character like that who's fighting for Western civilization, curriculum in the school, and he's being attacked. But he's a Jew, but he's not a devout Jew, right? Mm-hmm. He's a secular Jew. Mm-hmm. And so he's struggling with that whole thing in his past, and he's having to face that reality as well. So what are you fighting for if you're just fighting for Western civilization? It's really nothing unless it's rooted in a transcendent, objective, triune God. Yeah. And so that's my ultimate heart and soul behind the writing, for sure.
Amen. Where do you want people to get this book? Where's the best place for you?
Exclusively at Amazon, and it's in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and audiobook. So go to Amazon. You can get it all there.
Cruel Logic, The Philosopher Killer is the name, and it comes highly recommended by my wife, and she's put up with me now for 26 years. So There's no accounting for taste. Thank you, Brian. God bless you, man. Wish you well with the book, all right?
Thanks, Steve.
You
Bye.
bet. Yeah, straight up. My wife raved about this book. I mean, just narrated it to me and what was going on the whole time that she was reading it. Lots of people rave as well about our friends at Samaritan Ministries. As we are approaching a new year, maybe you're deciding what the right health care coverage is for you. Maybe insurance, thanks to Obamacare and everything else, thanks to Biden, is just too expensive. And this could be a less expensive option for you, but also give you the spiritual support you're looking for as well. No network, so when a medical need arises, you choose the healthcare provider that's right for you. You have a say in the type of treatment that you receive. You send your medical bills to Samaritan Ministries. They'll notify fellow members to pray for you, send money directly to you to help you pay those bills. And when another member has a medical need, you'll do the same for them. All right. So this is how the body of Christ comes together to pray, encourage, and provide for one another. And God gets glorified even when it comes to our healthcare system. Just check out Samaritan Ministries. And if it's the right fit, you can join today and let them know you heard about it right here on the show at SamaritanMinistries.org/Steve Deace, SamaritanMinistries.org/Steve Deace. Thoughts on that conversation?
Well, I harken back to our conversation about Father Stu, and Brian obviously gets something, the importance about painting evil accurately, because not to be gratuitous, no, quite the opposite, because to be rescued from that is to bring it home, the power of it home as immediately as possible. So then the light in the darkness makes all the more sense. The deliverance of the gospel makes all the more sense. So yeah, the harsh language, whatever means he used, and again, it doesn't sound like he went overboard, but it seems like this is the opposite of a grift. I have got to honor the reality of this to get to my ultimate goal, to save souls. So I respect him for that, because a lot of people have all kinds of ways of somehow thinking they can avoid the stink of things. That's the only way to come out clean on the other side.
There were a number of truth bombs that he dropped there. I think maybe the biggest one was that we can fight for Western civilization. We can fight for what it was rooted in. But ultimately, if we don't understand that this is all rooted in, and we're fighting for the existence and the omniscience and the rightful place of our God, we can sell a lot of Bud Light, but we're not really going to be saving much.
Yep. Gosh. Pop Culture Tuesday, fake news or not, next. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace, alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. And all of you, and you can let us know what you think about what we think. All of you can do that, just hopefully not all at once. Email the show, steve@stevedeace.com. DEACE is how to spell the last name. You can like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you're a podcast listener, thank you very much. You can leave us a 5-star review. Thank you to all of you who have. Well, Steve, I don't like your show. Well, we wouldn't ask you to lie. We might ask you to keep that knowledge to yourself, though. You might also think, it's okay, I kind of like it. Well, we would totally ask you to embellish. I mean, the commandment has nothing against exaggeration, just says not to bear false witness. So if you don't like it, we don't want you to, bear false witness. If you kind of like it, though, totally exaggerate what kind of like it means. And thank you to all of you that have done that. You can also hit subscribe or follow if you're on iTunes, and a lot of you have done that as well. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for those. Thank you as well to our friends over at Jace Medical. They came on board here post the initial phase of COVID because they saw what we saw and what we were talking about. Suddenly now, venerable medications are ruled dangerous and not fit for public consumption. They might even be horse-based. And so medications that we've given tens of millions of people to since the 60s, or we gave Nobel Prizes to just in the last decade, suddenly are verboten. And they were very concerned about what that might mean for other would-be venerable medications we might need in a crisis later. Well, now they're concerned about the current crisis we have, and that's where the Jace case came in. Well, now they're concerned about the current shortage crisis we have, the supply chain crisis. We're facing critical shortages of essential drugs right here in the U.S. that can cause severe disruptions in your health, your treatments. You could get treatment cancellations, rationing of vital medications possible. Try to avoid all that. Now you can get a customizable Jace case from Jace Medical. You can customize it with dozens of add-on medications from what medications you need to make sure that you've got a backup plan. And yes, ivermectin can be included in your Jace case. So if you want to get that kind of peace of mind, go to jacemedical.com right now. JASE for jacemedical.com and use the promo code DEACE at checkout for a discount. Promo code DEACE at checkout at jacemedical.com. Well, one of the things that has been a reoccurring theme this year for me on the show and places I've gone and spoken around the country is making Nefarious, a film that has so far grossed roughly in total revenue somewhere around $15 million. And on my desktop right now, I have a folder of thousands of emails from people, thousands, about how they loved the movie, it impacted them spiritually, or impacted someone they know spiritually. More people reacted to that movie than anything else I've been a part of in my whole career, and it's not even close. Best-selling book? Nope. Top 100 podcast? Nope. That movie. And it makes you wonder, over 2 million people have seen so far Nefarious. By the way, that's the cost of one Senate seat, Todd. In the 2022 midterms, it cost $15 million to win one seat in the U.S. Senate. One. And we reached over 2 million people with a movie that has grossed about $15 million in revenue.
Probably just a coincidence.
Imagine what kind of reach the $100 and $200 million movies that Hollywood produces regularly has. And you can see now, I can see now, as someone that's been involved, I've done everything you can do in politics other than actually work for a sitting president without being a candidate yourself. I've raised money, I've done commercials, I've done strategy, I've worked for campaigns, I've covered them. I've been involved in the political process from local school board man to running for president. But I never have seen the resistance, the spiritual resistance that we've witnessed the last few years trying to make Nefarious and get it and bring it to market. Because that pop culture is the enemy's stronghold. And we've got to vary our interests now. If you are a big-time Christian donor, great. But understand, man, we just can't live here cycle to cycle politically. What are we doing in between? The most influential platform in America is popular culture, particularly as it's relayed through these things. That's where we need to be. Well, Blaze contributor Jaco Booyens, who has spent a lot of time working in and around the movie industry and popular culture, he agrees and is launching a venture along those lines. Jaco, it is great to see you, brother. Merry Christmas. How are you?
Steve, so thankful to be on the show, and thank you for all you do. You're such a voice of reason to our nation. You're a dear friend. Merry Christmas to you as well.
So, brother, tell us about, first of all, before we introduce After Eden, I want you to give kind of your thought to the introduction I just gave to bringing you on and the importance of taking the light to this arena known as popular culture.
A phenomenal intro, so on point, hitting the mark. If we do not take territory back, some biblical term here, if we don't reclaim territory and redeem, which I say God intended for good, the arts, creativity, the ability to write song, tell story. You know, a dear friend of ours, both Glenn Beck, the storyteller, you know, the David Bartons of the world, the Steve Deaces of the world, through movies like Nefarious, to enlighten people, to bring what they deal with in their daily life and give it context and construct, to see it, to see that character, to say, well, listen, the demonic is real and people can be oppressed and possessed. And what if we're dealing with a force outside of flesh and blood? That's what Nefarious is doing, and I'm not surprised that it's one of the most engaging mediums that you've ever engaged with, and I'm excited you're going to continue that. We have to take that culture back, because years ago the church departed from the Motion Picture Association of America. We once sat in the seat where we decided what was rated PG-13, 18, RX, and we just handed it over. We are grossly misunderstanding in the GOP the power. We say media, and we think that means CNN, but we give Hollywood a pass. We don't understand what the rap culture has done to America. We don't understand what the lyrics in rap culture does to the subconscious. To then get a school like Harvard or Yale to compound it with further indoctrination. We don't understand what it means that when you have, Modern Family as a TV show, and subliminally they start positioning the child's mind that maybe it's not so bad to have two dads and one pretends to be a mom. And then later on, we have drag shows for kids. And later on, we've got Gen Zers marching in the street saying, well, I can pick my gender. This doesn't happen overnight, Steve. We argue since 1928, John Dewey visiting Joseph Stalin, and coming back and say Stalin's education system is the best, undergirding the American public education with secular humanism and Marxism, looking at an Alfred Kinsey sexualizing children, birthing a Hugh Hefner, the sexual revolution in the 60s, the AIDS movement, and here we are today with media and entertainment proliferating immorality through our culture, and it's destroying our culture. So your opening statement is, for me, a top two issues in our nation. We're losing our culture in entertainment. We say performers or entertainers shape culture, and we need to take it back.
I was speaking to an audience recently of some well-heeled Christians, and I said, it cracks me up when I hear believers say, no one cares what celebrities think, when the two most successful right-of-center presidents in my lifetime, one is a former movie actor who then was one of the pioneer television stars in the country, Ronald Reagan. The other is the biggest reality TV star of all time, Donald Trump. And before that was already maybe the biggest celebrity on planet Earth. But you're right. Nobody cares. Nobody cares whatsoever what celebrities think. Why do we say that? And how much of that is just because we're outnumbered there, and so we just tell each other that to make ourselves feel better?
A big reason is because we're consumers of it. And this is where accountability needs to set into this country. It's the same reason why I tell a father, hey, you're not going to teach your son to honor women and when you are abstaining from saying, hey, life matters, and protect the child in the womb. We are consuming the very thing that's degrading our culture, and we've been conditioned to say, well, that's just Hollywood, and celebrities don't matter. Really? You've got a reality TV star that just milked the United States of $200 billion called Zelensky, who was a TV actor who played the president in a television series as they were conditioning the Ukraine public that maybe this guy could be president. And they made him president. To think that Taylor Swift does not have an impact on Gen Z, to think that Taylor Swift saying, you should be pro-abortion, and all of a sudden you're not going to have millions of young girls standing against life is asinine. It is the most impactful. They understand very well the power they hold. And as the church, or even just the conservative-minded American, the patriot, we have to start understanding it. We have forfeited arguably the strongest tool into the hands of what we now call woke, but the diabolical, and we've got to take it back.
Well, that brings us to After Eden talent. Let's go there next as a potential, or one of the potential solutions to this dilemma. Tell us about it.
Multi-pronged. Steve Deace produces with amazing folks a movie called Nefarious. Nefarious goes and it impacts 2 million lives. It changes families. It starts conversations in the church, right? Steve is doing that. My wife is a writer. She writes screenplays. Some of the guys are camera operators, but then you have the talent. And for so many years, we've said, look, actors, you should say no to sexual immorality. And we've got, and you know, Steve, firsthand, my family, we have cultivated talent for decades. And we've trained them in the ways of God, and then we handed them to Hollywood. And so you're asking an actor to say no to roles that has profanity in it. So now the actor just doesn't work because it doesn't exist. So then we solved for that problem. Took us a while. The Kendrick brothers, the Irwins, you know, and so we go. And now we got amazing movies like Nefarious. But what about the performer's heart? What about the 8-year-old that has a dream to act? And today his mom's saying, oh, you're not going to Hollywood. That's not happening. You're not going to UCLA. So now what God created in the performer, the musician, the guitar player, the singer, we're now suppressing the desire, but in performers, their desires never leave. You know, I played professional sport. There's a day you wake up and you go, I'm done. I don't want to hurt anymore. I don't want to do a 6 a.m. ice bath. Mm-hmm. I'm done with therapy. The singer never sees that day. They go to the grave being a singer. They go to the grave being an actor. There's a reason we put the worshipers and the performers ahead of the military and the army to circle Jericho and bring the walls down. We're again now in an era, Steve, where we have to incubate, identify. So we call discover, identify them, incubate, develop, and then commission the performer at heart within a Judeo-Christian value set, a pro-American patriotic value set, understanding that I've got a responsibility to use my gift, to multiply my talent, and to impact this culture for good. We have to train the performer. And I think the gap that's being created, we're seeing amazing movements with Angel Studios and these guys. And again, movies like Nefarious, but now you have a performer that's compromised. Who is catching these kids young, training them in the right ways, or the one that's on their way? I use this story. We scouted personally. We scouted Megan Fox. Megan Fox started in the church. Katy Perry started in the church. Miley Cyrus, my mother-in-law, launched her career. Her name's Destiny Cyrus. Started in the church. Whitney Houston started in the church. And then they get handed over to the true deplorables, and they're unrecognizable, literally selling their souls. We have to go, Steve. So After Eating Talent exists to identify through auditions, if you've got a desire to perform, actor, singer, dancer, writer, podcaster, who's the next podcasters? Who's the next Steve Deace today that's 16 years old? We want to discover him, mentor him, get someone like the real Steve Deace to speak into his life, and then create opportunity to launch those careers and sustain those careers and incubate them as a community. And that's what After Eating Talent is for. And it's free for the performer. They can enroll today and create their free profile, and then they audition when they're ready. Some end up in a development track. Some are ready to be showcased to the industry through what you would consider like a reality-based show. Like there's $500,000 we've allocated to launch careers, season by season, 2 seasons a year. This is, Steve, finding the talent so that when you cast the next Nefarious, you can come select from a pool of actors that are the best in the business. No longer go to AGT or to The Voice or American Idol. They come here so that producers and directors like you have a talent pool to select from, or the next worship leader at Bethel, or the next contemporary Christian artist or country artist, but who wants to do it for good, right? That's why After Eating Talent exists.
Let's talk about the mentoring process, because the parents in the audience, that's what they're going to be concerned about. What does that look like? Because I mean, because now you've even got people who are products of the spirit of the age, like Natalie Portman, coming out and saying in the last week or so, no way I would recommend putting a child through the Hollywood experience as I was put through. All right. I mean, and she's not coming at this from the vantage point that you and I are, from the worldview that you and I are. This is a matter of experience in which she has seen and witnessed happen to too many young people like herself with her own eyes. So then what does that incubator look like, Jaco?
Yeah, Natalie is speaking from her pain. She's speaking from, you know, the trauma that she's had to go through, and she has her life still. You know, some lose their lives. That incubation was very pivotal. We went around the industry and we continue to go curate the best of the best, but that are Christ-centered 100%, that have a heart and an understanding for what our duty is in media and entertainment in this nation. And then we filmed 160 modules of curriculum. So it's online where and there's training programs for parents, for the student. It's 13 and up. Between the age of 13 and 18, the child can't own or operate the profile. The parent operates the profile with the child on the app. They're immersed, but it's the best. I'll give you an example. In our music program, our teachers that are teaching, whether it is performance, vocal technique, the ins and outs of the industry, the pitfalls of the industry, the roles of a manager and an agent, what should be okay and what shouldn't. In our music department, there's 21 Grammys in the music department. And these are people that have walked the walk, have stood the test of time, have said no to the demonic and the deplorable, and has a voice to speak into a young person's life, all the way through mentorship, coaching, how to read a contract, how to negotiate, how to deal with a 16-year-old child as a parent who you still want them to go through school. And so we've curated with people like a Steve Deace would be a candidate and say, hey, Steve, would you like to teach a masterclass to young aspiring movie producers, and what are the pitfalls? And if Steve then says, yes, Jaco, Steve then becomes a coach and a mentor on the After Eden platform.
So I've got somebody here with me who has some experience actually in your previous efforts along these lines. My oldest daughter, Anastasia, is actually here. Yes. Because you were just asking me about her when I saw you last week when I was down in Dallas. And we haven't talked about this a lot in recent years, but in previous efforts that you have mounted in order to have an impact in pop culture. As we say hello to Anastasia. How you doing, sweetie?
Good. How are you doing, Dad?
I'm doing well. So what was this, about 10 years ago? I think you were you were not yet 13. Right?
Yeah,
all right.
There I am.
Yeah, there you are. And I mean, that we had you enter in to this kind of a program. Tell us about what your experience was like.
Yeah, I mean, I was extremely grateful for the whole process. It was great to be with other believers who also had the same dreams as you do. Mm-hmm. Like when I got back here and I started doing the theater here with non-believers, it's like a totally different atmosphere than when you can really connect with people who think the same things you do. And even if it's not a main topic of discussion, just knowing you're with a group of people who have the same goal to impact a culture was super important. And the lessons I learned, I still carry with me when I did perform before and everything. So I mean, it was an extremely valuable part of my life and something that I very vividly remember and talk about a lot, and still talk to people from when I did it before.
I mean, you got to go all over the country. I remember there was a competition in Denver, I want to say, and then the finals were in Orlando.
Florida. Yep.
You, if memory serves, I think you finished second actually in their singing competition that year.
I did. I was, I do have the Deace competitive gene, so I was a little upset.
Second place is the first loser.
But it was, you know what? It was fair because the kid who beat me was really good, and he won
remembering his
everything.
Video, he was pretty good. Yeah,
he was. It was one of those moments.
Let me say something about this girl. So Steve's daughter went through our program, AMTC, and legitimately did the work, worked her backside off, trained. Mom was a champion, showed up in Orlando at the convention, very much like what this would be, but this is accelerated, and earned it. And I remember the moment, I remember the day vividly when you... Sorry for that video lapse there. I remembered the moment vividly when you earned that stage, and people may not know, but you've got an unbelievable voice. I think you borrowed a lot of that from Mom and Dad, because Dad's pretty darn talented himself. So no, I remember that vividly, and it's a testament, and you carry those lessons with you for life, because you're setting a new standard in a child's life to say, wait a minute, I've seen it a different way. There is a people, if we ask Anastasia today, Gen Z, what do they really want? They want identity, and the alphabet community will give it to them, but they'll say, just do whatever. do whatever. It will give you community. And so when we can wrap community around a young performer, and I think, Anastasia, you were 13, right? I think you were 13.
Almost 13. 12, almost 13, I think.
Almost.
Yeah.
And just what a success story. Phenomenal voice, phenomenal performer. And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And the program was great for us. It delivered. We actually got a one-on-one. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the air before, so I hope you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
She has the Deace family humility too. We actually got a one-on-one with a high-ranking executive. I don't think I can tell you which one, but at a very well-known record company, a name everybody would know. Do you remember that day?
Mm-hmm.
And it was at our old office that it was a Zoom interview that you got with him. And he was very impressed with your ability and gave us some follow-up steps of what needed to happen next to formalize a relationship with you. And we just talked about it, the three of us, and just thought, well, along the lines of what Natalie Portman said, maybe that's not where we wanted to steer you at that age and subject you to that quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
And but now that through that experience that you are capable of making those decisions on your own. If that's something you wanted to pursue through that experience, that you have that kind of ability.
Well, and the program really encouraged me then to utilize my talents more, and then that's when I started taking singing lessons with Aaron's sister,
who's like a
later.
world-renowned opera singer for people that don't realize that.
And so that's when I started taking singing lessons, and then I started getting into theater and learning more. It really helped me realize I have such a passion for it, and then the community that you develop when you're there, you really take those lessons with you, and then it made me want to continue on as well.
And I think, Steve, so important is when and back then she was a child, 12, right, finds that place of belonging, but more importantly, sees themselves as, wait a minute, God created value in me. I have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
I can contribute. I don't need the world to give me identity and tell me where I fit and where I belong. I'm actually someone that can go and help liberate others, speak into their lives. And you carry those lessons, throughout your life. But in that time, 10 years ago, there weren't Christian producers as much as we have today, or the Steve Deaces of the world. So now there's more opportunity for someone like, Anastasia to say, hey, I do want to pursue this, and there is a safe place. And so I encourage parents, if your child is that performer, or adult, so look, there's no age limit, right? To really take a look at After Eden Talent. A huge hurdle we had to cross was back then, in your parents really supported you. I remember your mom. I remember her there at the training sessions, showing up in Orlando, and there was cost involved at that time. And a problem I wanted to solve for the parents was, in that process, for it to not financially burden them. And we're now at that place, Steve, where it does no longer.
Mm-hmm.
It does not burden them financially, and it's not this huge expense for them to get involved with After Eden Talent. And it took us over a decade to get there, but we are there now.
All right, Jaco, I've got about a minute here. How do parents, if they're listening to this right now, how do they get started with their kid?
Go to app.afteredentalent.com, or just After Eden, like the garden, afteredentalent.com. It's self-explanatory. Register a free profile, dive in, learn, get some of the initial content to learn, and then prepare your child. We guide them through the steps all the way through to audition and start their journey with us. And you're with them step by step as a parent. And for the adults, it's laid out for you. And Steve, I can't thank you enough. What a surprise to have this most precious guest join us. What a blessing. And just as a family, you guys are pioneers. And thank you very much. God bless you.
Same to you, brother. Good to see you. And I really hope this takes off and is hugely successful. It is sorely needed. AfterEdenTalent.com is the website. All one word there. AfterEdenTalent.com. Merry Christmas, brother. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
You bet. All right. We'll have you back here for the overtime, Princess.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll see you then. It is always better to not need something and have it than it is to need it and then not have it when you do. And that's where our friends at My Patriot Supply come into play. Get their 3-month emergency food kit right now. That's all 3 square meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it also includes snacks and drinks. So the full 2,000 plus calorie regimen that each of us needs for nutrition. And they've got well over a dozen different types of meals and sides so that you can mix and match for variety. Stays good for up to 25 years with proper shelf life. Right now, you can get it with $200 savings, and be sure to order by 3 p.m. and your order ships free the very same day. Same day free shipping by 3 p.m. today, and $200 in savings if you go to preparewithdace.com. Again, head over there just to make sure you're ready for whatever Let's Go Brandon has in store. You never know. Preparewithdace.com. That's preparewithdace.com. Let's get some reaction to the conversation we just had with Blaze contributor Jaco Booyens on his endeavor trying to have a major impact and launch a full frontal assault on the stronghold known as popular culture via After Eden Entertainment. Or After Eden Talent, I'm sorry.
When Anna said coming back and you made your decision as a family after that on which way this would go, but she said, but I was so grateful because to paraphrase her, it woke up so many different things inside of me about my desires, my potential. And then at the age of 12, they have, I want to be a singer dreams. And then you have to come together alongside them as parents. Okay, so how do we actualize this? And a lot of parents make the mistake, a lot of Christian parents make the mistake of overdoing it in terms of just protect. This was not without risk. I mean, the emotions you put out there, if she goes, even in the best of circumstances, surrounded by loving people, if you don't quite succeed at the level you think you do, but that's absolutely part of it. That testing, this is a biblical concept, and then coming home, you're dealing with something far closer to God's destiny for you because you didn't bury your talents. You took you took her there as a father, Steve, and said, "No, we're gonna plant this. We're gonna see where this goes. We're gonna see what the increase is." And then you had a realistic decision but hey, this is going to be a tough world to help kids discover their talents in, but discover them we must nonetheless. And so thank God we have places like this. And man, Jaco, impressive guy.
Yeah, as despairing as the news is both on the left and the right, so many days that we come in here to do this, there are rays of hope. And ultimately our hope is in our Savior, obviously. But it does give you more wind beneath your wings or sails, if you will, when you see, hey, there are legitimate efforts like this to really recapture and to allow children and kids and people who God has talented to really showcase that talent in a way that's not going to lead them down the wrong path. That's pretty hopeful.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, and one cool gift you can give this Christmas, the gift of hearing. If you've got someone in need of a hearing aid, and you're like, man, those are expensive. Well, our friends at MD Hearing Aid, they want you to know that they've cut their prices in half, despite the inflation craziness. MD Hearing is just made their Neo rechargeable digital hearing aids for under $300 a pair, $297 a pair. That's over 90% less than clinical hearing aids. Plus, they're rechargeable with a battery life that lasts up to 30 hours. And the new Neo model, it's their smallest hearing aid ever. It fits right in your ear, and no one will even know that it's there. MD Hearing has sold over 1.5 million hearing aids, and they offer a 45-day risk-free trial with 100% money-back guarantee, so you can buy with confidence. Founded by an ENT surgeon who saw how many of his patients needed hearing aids but couldn't afford them, he made it his mission to develop a quality hearing aid that anyone could afford. Thus, MD Hearing Aid was born. So if you want MD Hearing's smallest hearing aid ever, go to mdhearing.com, use the promo code STEVE to get their new $297 a pair offer when you buy a pair at mdhearing.com and use the promo code STEVE. MD, as a medical doctor, mdhearing.com, and use the promo code STEVE to get this special offer, just $297 a pair at mdhearing.com, promo code STEVE. I believe we have dug deep into the archives, Aaron, have we not?
Yeah.
And this actually isn't her final performance when Anna was in this competition 10 years ago. This is the audition she did before the finale. You guys want to see it? I thought we'd play it after she left. That way we wouldn't embarrass her, y'all, even though it's one of the true joys, Todd, as you well know, of a father when your children get older is to embarrass them in public, correct? It's one of the things I greatly enjoy anyway.
Well, yeah, I know my daughters do not like this looking back in the way back awkward machine. But
so now that Anna's gone, let's do it. Here was Anna's audition at Jaco's competition about 10 years ago.
Good enough, but who are you to judge when you're a diamond in the rough? I'm sure you've got some things you'd like to change about yourself, but when it comes to me, wouldn't wanna be anybody else. Na 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 na. I'm no beauty queen, I'm just beautiful me. Na 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 na. You've got every right to a beautiful life. Come on, who says you're not perfect? Who says you're not worth it? Who says you're the only one that's hurting? Trust me, that's the cost of beauty. Who says you're not pretty? Who says you're not beautiful? Who says?
What'd you think?
Oh,
that's not bad for a 12-year-old.
It's outstanding, and I absolutely appreciate Jaco's comedic stylings by saying that somehow came from you. I mean,
he wasn't watching when we played pericarditis earlier today.
One of my favorite things you ever said in my time on
Did
this.
you like how I just kept a totally straight face when he said that too?
On our show one time, I don't remember, this is a long time ago, but I mean, we're live, and like with no self-awareness whatsoever, you were talking about this song, but it wasn't in my key, and like Aaron and I, like, you don't have a key. What are you talking about?
Except I have the key to America's hearts. Oh, thank you, Aaron, for plugging that in for us here at the last minute. Appreciate it. That was a good memory. Let's get to fake news or not. Brought to you by our friends over at Preborn. We mentioned them once already, but it's so important with end of the year giving right now. Make sure that you consider Preborn. That's our family. Put them at the top of our end of the year giving list when Amy and I were just discussing that a few days ago. An outstanding pro-life ministry. So many babies they have saved. But here's the thing. When you save the baby, you save mama, probably too. Because what that does to the heart and soul of women who fall for that lie, it can leave an open wound that only Jesus can heal. And they want to make sure to try to save women, not just save the baby from being a product of mom falling for the lie, but to save mom from the lie. So they offer all kinds of pre- and postnatal care for the mothers as well after they agree not to kill their children. They understand you got to love them both, and it's about truth and grace. They do both there at Preborn. Make a tax-deductible donation today so they can continue on in this mission, and everything can be free at preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve, or you can dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, or just go to preborn.com/Steve. All right, now when Tucker Carlson was removed from Fox back in March, I believe it was, we were all led to believe that he had a non-compete that was scheduled, and his contract did not expire until the end of this election cycle. And remember, a few days went by, he posted his first video on Twitter. Fox sent him a cease and desist, and we haven't really heard anything since. What was announced yesterday, the Tucker Carlson Network, or TCN, pretty much everyone knew that that's what was coming. He was just going to launch his own platform on a digital basis, especially now with the amount of freedom that Elon Musk is allowing on the platform of Twitter and the size of audience that you can accumulate just on Twitter alone. Makes perfect sense. But I think a lot of people weren't sure how soon this was going to happen. So clearly the original reports that we received of Tucker's non-compete were either erroneous, either he doesn't care, which is frankly the option I'm hoping for, or him and Fox have worked something out. But now they're doing a subscription service. It's not just him putting up videos now and claiming, hey, that's not a non-compete issue. I get a voice. I get to be a citizen, and Twitter's as a public platform, right? Well, now he's launching a subscription-based digital, platform that's a clear, direct competitor to Fox Nation. So obviously, that non-compete thing with Fox has either been worked out, or he's just going to let them go jump in a lake, which frankly is the option I'm hoping for. Nevertheless, this officially launched yesterday. The Dana White interview, Aaron, that you had in your montage at the top of the show, that was one of the very first things put on the platform yesterday. There's another interview with Kid Rock that's on the platform yesterday, which, by the way, Kid Rock used to announce that he and Travis Tritt, who's one of my all-time favorite country stars, and several other right-leaning musicians are going to do essentially a pro-America music festival tour next summer, which I think that will be a license to print money, would be my guess.
It seems so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent idea, and one that I think will be hugely successful if they can all come together and get their schedules synced up and make that happen.
Sponsored by Bud Light, perhaps?
Let's hope that's not the case, okay? But the concept in and of itself I'm in favor of. Let's see how the execution goes before we start executing, all right? Nevertheless, the announcement of Tucker's platform, yesterday, the debut of it. Let's talk about, from a fake news or not perspective, where this will end up in the hierarchy of conservative media platforms. In the digital space, this one, Blaze and the Blaze Media and Daily Wire are way ahead of almost everybody else in the digital space. Obviously, in the linear space and in the overall space, Fox is king. Okay, I mean, Fox is by far the number one still, even after losing about 40% of its audience to Tucker's departure and never quite recovering at all, is still, by and large, the most influential and largest platform, right-of-center media platform in the country. The next tier would be people like us and Daily Wire, for example. Where do we think TCN will rank? Who do we think will be the first people to join up and have their shows orbiting on that platform around Tucker? I'm going to predict that my prediction is Candace Owens does that when she returns from maternity leave. You could see, I'm not sure how that's going to work long term with her and Ben Shapiro, given what was going back and forth between them before she took maternity leave. So that's my prediction. But what do you guys think? What's fake news here and what's not about this launch and the impact that it could have? Who wants to go first?
Well, you'll recall, and I brought this up earlier in the week or maybe last week in a different context, that when Tucker seemingly started pulling his punches in various ways in terms of interviews he did, or seemed a little off kilter in other interviews he did, and why? What is the point? Where are we going with all this? I had one of two options for why it may be the case that to me made a lot more sense than just I'm selling out. He either through Trump was offered the vice presidency or a major cabinet position or something like that.
I think he was on Megyn Kelly's podcast yesterday saying that he's basically a Trump apologist at this point, like literally said it.
Yeah.
I will just tell you, I know people that he was texting earlier this year, and he was telling them, because they've now come to me to tell me this, he was telling them a dramatically different story about his thoughts about Donald Trump than what we're hearing right now.
Right. So why do you do that? If you are willing, I mean, to be principled enough to take the kind of flack he took, doesn't take odd interviews that other people might take. I mean, it's a certain kind of principle. Why would you do that kind of about face you're describing? Well, and Steve, you and I have conversations on and off all the time about There's just too much money, you know. Like, and you just talked about it on the show today. Everybody's a whore. Well, that's what we're talking about on some level. Either was offered whoring in the way of power, raw power, or whoring along these lines. Just how big this thing could get depends on how much seed money he got, how much Trump and Trump adjacent people are involved. What that would mean, though, if we don't know what Trump himself means right now. How can we properly understand what the Trump adjacent newscaster, podcaster is doing? I can see this thing taking over everything, but we don't know. You just mentioned right out of the gate two things that are, Kid Rock loves him some Trump. I know that. So he's on there. And what's his face?
Dana White.
Dana White is also affiliated.
Those are the first two guests on his new
affiliated,
platform. Yeah.
But they're not Trump himself. How thick Tucker just goes into this thing and wraps himself in the Trump flag is really... Will he then fall prey to the red wave that wasn't? Or are there different measuring sticks? Is the political measuring stick not quite the same as the grift measuring stick? I wish I could be more helpful, but I have way more unknowns in this than knowns in my estimation.
I think this is going to be incredibly prosperous for Tucker Carlson and that entire network. And I think he's already telegraphed to us that this is going to be the case. You go from texting people and texts that were revealed in the Dominion lawsuits, how you can't stand Donald Trump, to now cozying up for him, even if it's for vice presidency or just monetarily. Tucker Carlson has told you basically, there's a price that I have. There's a price that I have. So if it ends up he's the vice president, I don't think that's going to be a nominee. I don't think that's going to be, hey, maybe that was a good whoring out. But I think even if he has to fall back on TCN, Tucker Carlson Network, it's going to be incredibly prosperous for him, because I think he's shown you he will tell an audience, a massive audience now, what they kind of want to hear. And I don't know if there's been a leak of the lineup for, I guess they've got a digital linear channel. 5 p.m. Eastern time, it's going to be beer tasting with Dylan Mulvaney. 6 p.m.
I was actually like, yes. Whoa, okay, I'm interested. Yeah,
yes.
6 p.m. Is It Porn with Andrew Tate. 7 p.m. It's going to be the Tucker Carlson show. And then 8 p.m. upon further review. You know what? No, I'm not going to go there.
Aaron, you're back, baby. I mean,
Is It Porn?
You were
Is It Porn featuring Andrew Tate is brilliant.
He's back, America. We missed you, Aaron.
Is It Porn?
See, here's
Andrew Tate is great.
Is it permanently?
Steve, just be glad I didn't say what I was going to say for the last show there.
See, I didn't know what you were going to say, so I guess I'll take your word for it. I should be glad. Okay.
Like, four-dimensional chess. Allow me.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I know we always say, by the way, the official show position is there's no such thing. I actually think Tucker is capable of playing four-dimensional chess.
I do too.
Is Tucker saying, like,
are you going to say he's playing all these fools? I think it's possible.
Including Donald Trump.
I think it's entirely possible.
Donald Trump would love me to kiss his backside.
Yep. And I've only got to do it for one time, one cycle.
And the truth is what I said in those tweets.
Yep.
But I can make myself this thing. He goes down. Now, here's the part. I somehow stay clean on the other side. That's a big gamble. We all know that. But Tucker Carlson is doing okay either way. But he says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to ride this out. I'm going to then position myself to be inevitable when Trump, and even in Trump's, either Trump goes away or he's president for 4 more years. And by the way, he's also 80. So he's
right. He has no heir apparent.
Right.
Who's going to pick up all these people? Where are they going to go?
I think.
Yeah.
So this is why
I absolutely think it is possible that Tucker is playing a different dimension of chess and playing all of
and
these
also,
people.
this is why I do think, I don't know what those variables would be, but I said pretty forcefully, I think on Friday, that I do think Tucker has some, walk away points. We don't have to necessarily know that if it gets so nutty, I go back to where I was. Again, risky game, but I just fundamentally don't believe that Tucker suddenly became the antithesis. He had to take risks no one else would take. He did realize at some point in the game, I'm not playing this game anymore. It's even at Fox. And that's why he had a meteoric rise. He did things. Other people, but you don't understand. Ours goes up to 11. He's like, this is insane. Why do we do this? This is why you guys shared a wavelength in many respects, even though he was coming from a non-theistic perspective. I thought we were about these certain things, and therefore I'm going to be about these certain things without compromise.
I think that's entirely possible, what is going on here. In fact, I think it's the betting line favorite. That's what's happening here. Yeah.
I'm prepared to be wrong, though.
No, I think you might have read this one right. All right, we're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, you'll see you tomorrow, John 3:17.